That vanilla latte you grabbed at 2 p.m. yesterday, it just triggered a metabolic disaster that your liver is still dealing with today. But if you'd had the exact same drink at 8 a.m., your body would have handled it completely differently. Today, we're diving into why avoiding added sugar before noon protects your liver and stabilizes your metabolism. Specifically, how your body's internal clock determines whether sugar becomes energy or becomes a problem, and practical strategies you can use starting tomorrow morning. Let me bring in someone who's been studying this fascinating intersection of timing and metabolism.
This is one of those areas where the research is just mind-blowing. We're discovering that when you eat sugar might be more important than how much you eat. Your liver processes sugar completely differently at 9 a.m. versus 9 p.m., and it all comes down to these internal clocks that most people don't even know they have.
Wait, internal clocks? Like plural?
Exactly. So you've got your master clock in your brain that's in the suprachiasmatic nucleus of your hypothalamus, but then every organ has its own peripheral clock. Your liver, your pancreas, your muscle tissues, they all have their own 24-hour rhythms that affect how they handle glucose and insulin.
That's wild. So my liver is literally on its own schedule?
Pretty much, yeah. And here's the thing, when these clocks are synchronized and working optimally, your body becomes incredibly efficient at managing blood sugar. But when you eat sugar at the wrong times, you're basically working against millions of years of evolution.
Okay, so before we get into the timing piece, help me understand what's actually happening when we consume added sugars. What's going on in our bodies?
So according to recent research from Sapienza University of Rome, simple sugars are key contributors to liver injury and disease progression. When you consume sugar, especially fructose, it triggers several harmful mechanisms. Inflammation, something called de novo lipogenesis, where your liver starts making fat, oxidative stress, insulin resistance, and even gut problems.
De novo lipogenesis, that sounds terrifying. What is that exactly?
It's basically your liver turning sugar into fat. So when you consume excess sugar, particularly fructose, your liver can't process it all for energy, so it starts converting it directly into fatty acids. This leads to fat accumulation in the liver itself.
And this is what leads to fatty liver disease?
Exactly. The research shows that high sugar consumption is strongly associated with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD. And this isn't just about people who are obviously unhealthy. This can happen to anyone consuming too much added sugar.
So how much is too much? Because I'm thinking about the CDC data here.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty shocking. The CDC found that children and young adults aged 2-19 consume an average of 17 teaspoons of added sugar daily. That's boys at 18 teaspoons and girls at 15 teaspoons. To put that in perspective, that's like drinking 2 cans of soda before lunch.
17 teaspoons. That's insane. And the recommendations are what?
Well, here's something that might surprise you. The dietary guidelines for Americans actually say no amount of added sugars is recommended as part of a healthy diet. For children under 11, they recommend 0 added sugar. For adolescents and adults, no more than 10 grams per meal.
0 for kids under 11? That seems almost impossible in our current food environment.
It really is. And that's part of the problem. Added sugars are hidden everywhere, in processed foods, beverages, even things you wouldn't expect. The leading sources are sugar-sweetened beverages, desserts, and sweet snacks like cookies, brownies, cakes, ice cream.
Okay, so we're consuming way too much sugar, and it's damaging our livers. But now let's get to the timing piece. Why does it matter when we consume this sugar?
This is where it gets really fascinating. Research shows that insulin sensitivity naturally fluctuates throughout the day. It's typically highest in the morning and gradually declines toward evening. So your body is literally better equipped to handle carbohydrates and maintain stable blood sugar levels earlier in the day.
So that's why the noon cutoff makes sense?
Exactly. According to research published in Metabolism journal, several metabolic rhythms peak in the biological morning or early afternoon. This includes glucose tolerance, insulin sensitivity, and energy expenditure. The research literally states that this implicates earlier in the daytime as optimal for food intake.
And what happens if you eat that same sugar later in the day?
When you eat late in the evening or during nighttime hours, you're working against your natural circadian rhythm. Your body's reduced insulin sensitivity during these hours means that the same meal consumed at night will likely cause a higher blood sugar spike than if eaten during the day.
That's incredible. So it's not just what you eat, it's when you eat it.
Right. And this is where chrononutrition comes in. That's the study of how meal timing impacts health by aligning with the body's circadian rhythms. The research in this field has been growing at an annual rate of 11.41%, which shows how much scientific interest there is in this area.
Chrononutrition, I love that term. So the timing of food intake might be just as important as what we eat?
That's exactly what the research suggests. Traditionally, dietary research focused on macronutrient composition and caloric intake. But growing evidence indicates that the timing of food intake may be just as important as what and how much we eat in determining health outcomes.
This is blowing my mind. So let's get practical here. What does this look like in real life?
Well, registered dietitians are now recommending eating breakfast within an hour of waking to align with your natural circadian rhythms. One study found that people who eat breakfast by 8:30 a.m. tend to have lower blood sugar and insulin levels.
8:30 a.m. specifically? That's pretty precise.
Yeah, and it makes sense when you think about it. Your body is primed for food intake in the morning. But here's the key. They're recommending a balanced breakfast that's low or free from added sugar. So you're working with your circadian rhythm, not against it.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, having a sugary breakfast at 8 a.m. is still better than having it at 8 p.m.?
From a metabolic standpoint, yes. But the ideal scenario is avoiding added sugars altogether, especially in the morning when you want to set yourself up for stable blood sugar throughout the day. The research shows that eating earlier in the day may improve glucose metabolism and energy utilization.
And what about the inflammation piece? I saw something about morning habits reducing inflammation.
Yeah, that's a crucial connection. High blood sugar and inflammation are closely linked. Each fuels the other. Ongoing inflammation makes blood glucose harder to manage, while high blood glucose levels drive more inflammation. It's this vicious cycle.
So by avoiding sugar in the morning, you're breaking that cycle?
Exactly. Research has found that eating earlier in the day may reduce markers of inflammation. So by having a balanced, low-sugar breakfast early, you're potentially setting up your entire day for better metabolic health.
This is making me think about meal frequency too. Does how often you eat matter for insulin sensitivity?
Great question. Meal frequency can definitely impact insulin response. If you're eating frequent meals throughout the day, you could lead to near constant elevation of insulin, potentially reducing insulin sensitivity over time by not allowing insulin levels to fully decline between meals.
So those people who graze all day might actually be hurting themselves?
It depends on what they're eating, but potentially yes. Traditional eating patterns with 3 meals a day allow for periods where insulin levels can return closer to baseline. This gives your body distinct times for digestion, followed by periods where insulin activity is reduced.
And that's better for insulin sensitivity?
Generally, yes. High insulin sensitivity means a smaller amount of insulin is needed to effectively lower blood glucose levels. When insulin levels stay elevated constantly, your cells can become less responsive to it over time.
So let's talk about the liver specifically. How does timing affect liver health?
Your liver has its own circadian rhythm that affects how it processes nutrients. When you consume sugar at times when your liver isn't optimally prepared to handle it, you're more likely to trigger those harmful mechanisms we talked about. The inflammation, the fat production, the oxidative stress.
And this can lead to serious liver disease?
Absolutely. The research from Sapienza University shows that simple sugars are associated with metabolic dysfunction-associated steatotic liver disease, or MASLD, and its complications. This isn't just about people who drink alcohol, this is sugar-induced liver damage.
That's terrifying. So what's the mechanism here? How does sugar timing specifically protect the liver?
When you align your sugar intake with your body's natural rhythms, meaning consuming it when insulin sensitivity is highest, your liver can more efficiently process it for energy rather than converting it to fat. You're working with your biology instead of against it.
And the noon cutoff is based on when insulin sensitivity starts declining?
Exactly. Research shows insulin sensitivity is typically highest in the morning and gradually declines toward evening. So by avoiding added sugars after noon, you're essentially giving your body the best possible chance to handle any sugar you do consume.
But let's be realistic here. Is it actually possible to avoid all added sugar before noon in our current food environment?
It's challenging, but not impossible. You'd need to be really conscious about reading labels, avoiding obvious sources like pastries and sweetened coffee drinks, and focusing on whole foods for breakfast and lunch.
What about natural sugars, like fruit?
The CDC definition of added sugars specifically excludes naturally occurring sugars in fruits, vegetables, and milk. So an apple at 10 a.m. is fine. It's the added sugars from processing that we're concerned about.
That makes sense. So what would an ideal morning look like from a chrononutrition perspective?
You'd wake up and eat a balanced breakfast within an hour, something rich in protein, healthy fats, and fiber. No added sugars. This aligns with your peak insulin sensitivity and sets you up for stable blood sugar throughout the day.
And then what? Just avoid anything with added sugar until afternoon?
That's the idea. Focus on whole foods, read labels carefully, and save any treats for later in the day when your body is better prepared to handle the metabolic stress. Though, honestly, the goal should be minimizing added sugars altogether.
This is such a different way of thinking about nutrition. Instead of just counting calories or avoiding certain foods, we're thinking about when we eat them.
Exactly. And this field is exploding with research. The bibliometric analysis shows chrononutrition research has been growing at over 11% annually, with major institutions like the University of Illinois at Chicago leading the way.
What do you think this means for the future of nutrition advice?
I think we're going to see a major shift toward personalized nutrition based on circadian rhythms. Instead of one-size-fits-all dietary guidelines, we'll have recommendations that consider not just what you eat, but when you eat it based on your individual chronotype.
Chronotype?
Whether you're naturally a morning person or a night owl, your individual circadian rhythm might affect the optimal timing for your meals. But the basic principle, aligning food intake with metabolic rhythms, that's universal.
So when you step back from all this research, what's the key takeaway for someone listening right now?
The key takeaway is that your body has an incredible internal wisdom about when to eat and when not to eat. By avoiding added sugars before noon, you're working with millions of years of evolution instead of against it. You're protecting your liver, stabilizing your metabolism, and potentially preventing serious chronic diseases.
And the practical steps are actually pretty simple. Eat breakfast early, make it balanced and low in added sugar, and be mindful of timing throughout the morning.
Exactly. It's not about perfection, it's about awareness. Once you understand that your 2 p.m. cookie hits your body differently than your 8 a.m. cookie, you can make more informed choices about when and how much sugar you consume.
Here's what I find most fascinating about all this. We've been so focused on what to eat that we completely missed when to eat it. But your liver doesn't care if that sugar comes from a health food store or a gas station. It cares what time you consumed it.
That's exactly right. And that's the power of chrononutrition. It gives us a completely new lens for understanding metabolic health. The same food can be medicine or poison depending on when you eat it.
So tomorrow morning, skip the vanilla latte until after lunch. Your liver will thank you, your blood sugar will stay stable, and you'll be working with your body's natural rhythms instead of fighting against them. Thanks for joining us on Copilot Podcasts. And remember, timing isn't everything in nutrition, but it might be more important than we ever imagined.